Man, you know who I am. You know exactly where you at. This is the Witted Wire, and why wouldn't you subscribe? And before we get started with today's content, I need you to do just that. Subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell, so that way you locked in with each and every piece of content that I drop, and you see is daily. But we got updates from every team in the AFC North, including the team I love to hate the most, them goddamn Pittsburgh Steelers. Shout out to my sister, though. But then we also got to talk about these wide receiver contract negotiations and extensions that we seeing going on in the NFL right now, and how they could possibly have an impact on what happens with the Baltimore Ravens and the Zay Flowers contract extension. Because, yeah, we got that fifth-year deal, but what about 2028, though? And then lastly, we got to touch on the impact that Micah Parsons being out to the middle of October is not only going to have on the Green Bay Packers moving forward, but also the entire NFL, because the price of a defensive end pass rusher that can consistently get to that quarterback just went up. But like I said, it's the Witted Wire. Why wouldn't you subscribe? I ain't even gonna lie to y'all. It's just something about saying I hate the Pittsburgh Steelers that just puts a smile on my face. But we do got to talk about what they've been doing this week. So they've been really busy, especially in that tight end room. Now, ever since they signed Aaron Rodgers to the 1 year, $25 million with $22 million guaranteed, they've really been looking to improve and invest in that offensive side of the football. And so they've done that. They restructured one tight end deal, saving them a little bit of cap money on the back end. But they also gave an extension to Darnell Washington, the 6'7", almost 300-pound tight end that is nothing more than a big glimpse. Because at the end of the day, the man has 35 catches career-wise. Yeah, he showed flashes of some type of chemistry with Aaron Rodgers, but at the end of the day, it was a glimpse. It was a flash in the frying pan, but he did end up picking up a bag 4-year, $42 million with $21 million guaranteed. Now, he has fully recovered from that broken arm that he did sustain in Week 17 against the Cleveland Browns. But like I said, this contract to me is more so based on projection more than anything. And you're going to see that being a consistent theme with this next signing that we talk about with the Pittsburgh. Now, one thing I am not a hater. And this dude, as much as I hate the Pittsburgh Steelers, I cannot hate on his individual play. Nick Herbert has just picked up a bag for 4 years, $100 million. And for a DN, you know that's learning every spin move, every club, every bull rush, how to manage a double team, how to keep outside leverage from the generational talent that TJ Watt is. This has to be a steal. And then when you think about defensive ends, they're at a premium price right now. We're going to get to that more later in the show, but he's young. He's a dog for sure. Like, I can't even hate on that man. He has a nose for the football. But the one thing I will say about him, just like Darnell Washington, this contract is based on projection and what he should do and what they feel like he will do in the future. Because when you think about it, that's how contracts should be done, not necessarily looked at as lifetime achievements award, what you did for me in the past or what you're doing for me right now. It's about what you're going to be able to do for me after I get you this money, what you're going to be able to produce for me after I pay you this big signing bonus. And so for him, the one thing I can say is he's getting starter money to be a higher hit man. But again, when you learn it from TJ Watt and ultimately looking to be his replacement, it ain't too much I can say to that. But like I said, not a starter, but definitely a contributor. And to my eye as a football player, he's worth every penny. But overall, it looks like the Pittsburgh Steelers really invested in the future and projection and not just based upon what their current players are doing right now. So since we sticking with the theme of projection, I figured why not put in a little bit of delusion and talk about the Cincinnati Bengals, because it's that time of year where Joe Burrow do what Joe Burrow normally does best. And that's sit there and hype up and put these expectations on the Cincinnati Bengals that they are never going to be able to achieve. And yet he's at it again, saying that this team, not only we should expect multiple double-digit wins, we should expect an explosive offense all throughout the season. We should also expect them to not only win the division, but also win the Super Bowl this year. Now, this has never been a talent thing when it comes to the Cincinnati Bengals. It has always been a health thing when it comes to the Cincinnati Bengals, specifically a Joe Burrow health things when it comes to the Cincinnati Bengals. So I understand you got new coaches, you got new acquisitions like Dexter Lawrence attempting to fill the void left by Baltimore Ravens' biggest free agent, Big Trey Hendrickson. But at the end of the day, do I have to remind you how many sacks Big Sexy Lex actually totaled last year? 0.5. A 0.5. Now, on the street, that might mean something else. But in NFL and in football statistics, that means half a sack. Now, what I will say, to back up the beating of the chest that Joe Burrow is currently doing right now, a lot of people are saying they got one of the easier schedules that the NFL has to offer. I think it's ranked like the third or fourth easiest schedule for the 2026 season. Now, a lot of that has to do with the win-loss records of those individual teams on paper from last season, which that includes us. And let's be very clear here, Cincinnati Bengals, it was an outlier. So slow down. And we still did better than y'all. But slow down. I am assured that y'all are wondering why I got this goofy-ass picture of Joe Burrow up. It is merely because that's what I'm more consistently known for seeing him in. When the NFL season is going on, that man is in sweats, a hoodie, and got an earpiece. You know why? Because his ass is injured on the sideline. I'm sorry, and that's just a fact. Again, it's never been about the talent thing when it comes to the Cincinnati Bengals. You got Jamar Chase, you got T. Higgins. Joe Burrow is one of the best throwers of the football in the NFL and in our division. However, he can't stay healthy. He has more impact on Fashion Week runway, modeling for Vogue with his back out, no Diddy, than he actually does on the NFL football field. So I'm sorry, like, I hear you talking, I see the schedule, but you got to show me better than you can tell me. But let's talk about the schedule. And like I said, it's based off the opponent's win-loss record of 2025, so I get it. But when you actually looking at this schedule, do you see a lot of cupcake games? I don't think outside of the Arizona Cardinals, which we know they're about to be the worst team in the league this year, the Tennessee Titans, who still probably trying to redefine themselves and find a new identity, it ain't no easy games on this schedule. Like, I do expect the Minnesota Vikings to be better. I mean, you obviously going to have a question about the Jacksonville Jaguars and their consistency. And also, you already know you got questions at the quarterback position with the Indianapolis Colts. But all throughout, they still got teams from the NFC West. They still got teams from the AFC South that were contending, and some people had them as Super Bowl favorites. So let's slow down a little bit. But next up on the line item is them loathful, sorry-ass Cleveland Browns. Now, I will say this. They made major NFL news, obviously, with the trade of Myles Garrett to the LA Rams, bringing over not only defensive end Jared Verse, who is, to his credit, in his own right, a Pro Bowler 2 times. But also 2027 first-round pick, 2028 second-round pick, and 2029 third-round pick. Now, let me talk about these hating-ass Cleveland Browns and what they did. Now, again, I said I ain't no hater, so I can appreciate, you know what I'm saying, you making sure you protect your blind side. They put a clause in the trade with the LA Rams that if the LA Rams were to trade Myles Garrett back to the AFC South, or not AFC South, but AFC North. So if he were to be traded to the Ravens, the Bengals, or the Steelers, that third round conditional pick would then become a first round. I ain't gonna lie. That's sneaky good. I can tip my hat to that. That's sneaky good. Jared Verse and his transparency with being traded to Cleveland. He said he was shocked. He said it was AI. He was upset when he heard about the news that he was traded to Cleveland. I'm not going to lie to you, Jared Verse. Everybody's upset when they find out they're getting traded to Cleveland. So you ain't nobody new when it comes to that regards. However, one thing I do want to say is you are a proven talent and a proven commodity in the NFL. But one thing I am questioning is the overall player development when it comes to the Cleveland Browns organizational. because outside of a couple generational talents, a Joe Thomas generational talent, a Myles Garrett a generational talent, have we ever really heard of the Cleveland Browns actually developing players? But also wrapping up the Cleveland Browns, there was a little funny story that I did see and did hear about. He stepped onto that practice field wearing number 8. Now, that wouldn't be a problem in most locker rooms, except there's already a player wearing number 8. And he was just drafted to the Cleveland Browns last year. Dillon Gabriel, you started in practice wearing number 8. I bet you did not end practice wearing number 8. And if you did, you definitely didn't start the next day wearing number 8. Let's talk about these Baltimore Ravens and what they got going. Now, obviously, this is going to be your channel. This is going to be a platform for consistent Baltimore Ravens coverage. So I've already talked about this, so I'm going to keep it short and keep it brief. But we have talked about that revamped pass rush for the Baltimore Ravens, led by newcomer Zion Young out of Missouri. Also, his new running mate, Mike Green, who is in his second year, but is coming into this OTAs and to this upcoming training camp with a lot of high expectations. Those two will be battling out opposite of Trey Hendrickson for their starting DN spot. Now, there has been new energy. There has been new chemistry that is not only established, but on continuing to be established within the office, and that's between first-year offensive coordinator and two-time MVP Lamar Jackson. Them working side by side on the offensive side of the ball, it just makes things easier when it comes to communication styles. With Doyle only being as old as Lamar, with them being that close in age, they're able to just, you know what I'm saying, kind of take off or peel back a layer of the miscommunication that can possibly happen when you have younger players talking to older coaches. I definitely love the new energy that I'm hearing now. Again, he's demanding a lot. Doyle is demanding a lot, but I'm hearing that the players are responding to his demands the way he wants them to. And so we're looking forward to good things will come to their offense. But the only thing I don't like about this whole Declan Doyle and the chemistry with Lamar, I just don't think he's going to be with the Ravens too much longer. I know he just got there, and this is year 1. I will be shocked if we get him for 3 full seasons. But y'all let me know what y'all think about that. Again, the Ravens just staying consistent, just putting our head down, just getting the work done throughout OTAs, expecting the big 2026 from them. Well, I will tell you this. One of the many ways Declan Doyle and Lamar Jackson will be successful in 2026 is with the help of this Pro Bowl wide receiver right here in Zay Flowers. And Zay Flowers has to be reading the temperature and know the temperature of the NFL market when it comes to the wide receiver, which it looks to be pretty high. Again, Christian Watkins of the Green Bay Packers signing a 4-year, $110.5 million contract with $30 million signing bonus. Coming off of a torn ACL in 2024. Drake London, 4 years, $141 million, up to $150 with incentives, but $100 million guaranteed. Now, one thing about both of those wide receivers are from that 22 class. Now, Zay Flowers is from the 23 class, so again, he's right in line for a new deal. After the Ravens picked up his 5th-year option, Zay goes from a $2.66 million base salary up to $28 million in 27. The only thing that I feel like is held against Zay Flowers is the lack of touchdowns. But when you think about it, option number 1 is going to be Lamar Jackson because he touches the ball every time. Option number 2 is going to be Derrick Henry because he averages 16 touchdowns a year with the Baltimore Ravens, even though we say we don't give him the ball enough. Option number 3 is going to be probably future Hall of Famer Mark Andrews, and I say probably. I think he's a fringe Hall of Fame tight end. I think a Super Bowl definitely gets him into the Hall of Fame for sure, but definitely somebody I think is still productive in this league. And again, it's probably a major target just because of Zay Flowers' physical size and physical presence, specifically in these short windows in the red zone. However, I still believe in Zay, though. Numbers don't lie. His numbers continue to improve. Again, back-to-back 1,000-yard receivers for the Baltimore Ravens. He is the first wide receiver to ever be named to a Pro Bowl from the Baltimore Ravens organization, which think about some of the wide receivers that we have had, from the Anquan Boldens to the Steve Smiths of the world. None of them were Pro Bowl wide receivers at the time they were with the Baltimore Ravens. Now, there has been a lot of question. Will Zay Flowers, or is Zay Flowers a 1,500-yard receiver? Yes, unequivocally yes, as long as he gets the opportunities. And I think with Declan Doyle, they are on the way. Zay, the opportunities are on the way to see you in the end zone more in 2026 and to see more versatility in the way you are used offensively. So looking forward to it. But contractually, I do say this. I expect him to command probably top 20 to 25 wide receiver money in the NFL. And the way I'm kind of looking at that, that's probably anywhere from $29 to $31 million, especially based upon hopefully a Super Bowl winning year in 2026. But definitely something we want to keep a watchful eye on when it comes to wide receivers and contract extensions in the NFL. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe to the channel. It's the With It Wire. Last topic before we get out of here, we got to touch on the impact of the Micah Parsons injury update. Now, obviously, Micah Parsons is another transcendent generational talent that was just traded from the Dallas Cowboys to the Green Bay Packers at the start of the season, and expectations were extremely high once he arrived and got acclimated to that defense. Had them performing like a well-oiled engine, honestly. But unfortunately for him, he ends up with the knee injury, and the diagnosis and the aspirations that Micah Parsons had, unfortunately, are not the reality that he is currently living in. Obviously, someone who wants to be on the field, wants to be wearing that gold and green, unfortunately will not be seen on the football field for some time. I know he had a week 1 expectation, but it has just come out that it's going to be more along the lines of mid-October when we're likely to see Micah Parsons back on the field. What that actually does do, though, is put a huge hold on the defensive side of the ball when it comes to the Green Bay Packers, and specifically when it comes to the pass rush of the Green Bay Packers. Now, you're obviously not going to be able to replace him fully. No one's going to have his spirit. No one's going to have his physical attributes. No one's going to have that commanding presence of a Micah Parsons. However, there are serviceable acquisitions out there if, like anything else in the NFL, the price is right. But I think what you're looking for the Green Bay Packers, you're looking for an experienced defensive lineman, but you're also looking for a defensive lineman for the short term. You already have your long-term answer when it comes to the pass rush and Micah Parsons. So if you can get someone who can just keep the team afloat, you can get someone who can play the rush at a serviceable rate, if you can get someone who can still cause consistent chaos in the backfield, whether it be with the running back and, more importantly, a quarterback. That's what you're looking for. And I think the person that fits the bill for the Green Bay Packers, honestly, and I hate to say this because I want him to re-sign with the Baltimore Ravens, but it's Jadeveon Clowney. I think he's a perfect fit for what the Green Bay Packers are missing with the loss of Micah Parsons. He is someone who still has a high motor, still is highly productive in this league. He wants to be a 3-down the end. He plays the run very well. He can still get back and get after the quarterback on a consistent rate. Now, obviously, the biggest thing when it comes to him, just like anybody else, it is going to be price tag, but he is, in my opinion, the best fit for the Green Bay Packers. But also you're going to hear names associated like Joey Bosa, Hassan Reddick, and even Espinoza out of Buffalo. So those are some of the names that I expect the Green Bay Packers to reach out to in the next couple of days and bring them in for, if not a workout, at least a conversation. But, man, that wraps up the first show of the With It Wire, man. I appreciate y'all actually tuning in. And again, man, continue to support the channel, but I appreciate each and every one of y'all. Continue to engage with me, continue to critique me. I'm only going to get better from here. Again, like, this is on episode 1. Just check me out, episode 1000. I'm going to be here for a while, man. This